Hmm. Well, end of work this year, and we finally had this funeral. So I went to this funeral, and yeah, didn't end up being a pallbearer. One of my male cousins was meant to be one. Someone forgot to tell him, and yeah. So it was all sort of, well, it ended up being all women who carried the coffin out there, but to be honest, it was really just on rollers. Yeah. So all the cousins and all the family and different people that we never knew my auntie, and yeah. Anyway, turns out I worked it out. I've actually been a pallbearer 3 times before. It was my uncle who used to live in this house, cottage, whatever. It was my grandfather, and what was the other one? Oh yeah, great aunt. And for those of you who have never carried a coffin before, like not on the rollers, but actually, they used to have an older way where they'd carry it on their shoulders and then have one hand over the other guy's back or whatever, and they sort of, yeah. Now it's sort of like the guys either side would link their arms together and sort of each of them would sit his side on his appropriate shoulder sort of thing. Well, over here we sort of, yeah, that was the old way. Over here now we just hold it by the handles on the side. And I'll tell you what, if you've ever lifted a coffin with a dead person in, if you've ever actually looked at coffins, like I worked for a joint that was a skip bin joint for a short while, a lot of it's just actually just plywood. But if you've ever actually lifted a coffin with someone in there, it doesn't matter how old and frail this lady was or whoever, how thin they were, frickin' hell, coffins are heavy. Oh man. And it didn't really help that this old aunt was, yeah, well, let's be honest, she was quite a bit heavier than me. She was a sack of cement heavier than me, pretty much. I couldn't believe it, but then again, considering the crap she ate, I suppose it's not unbelievable. After all, she's 105 kilos, which is like basically, it's frickin' hell. What is it? It's like 220 something pounds. Like, I think it's about 230 pounds, which is a bit for a woman. I mean, she's a fairly broad-shouldered person, and they thought they might have had to use a bigger coffin, but they got her in a normal coffin, which, you know, it might have been a coffin that would, you know, fit a man sort of thing, because she's fairly broad-shouldered. It's sort of funny in the family that there's some family members who, some of the cousins and the girls have got big, and, you know, and the aunties have got big tits and others don't. And, yeah, well, she was fairly broad-shouldered and fairly busty as well. But I tell you what, when you see the photos of her, fucking hell. I mean, if you ever think LCD looks bad, you should see the photos of this auntie. Fucking hell. But, you know, it's just looks so worn out and, you know, bad teeth and sort of set back eyes and very sort of, just a bit of a, very, just really worn out, sort of, almost remind you of a drug addict or something like that. But what it really was, it was the years of medication. And they reckon she didn't have schizophrenia, so I'd heard, but she used to be a bit violent, and as a result they had her on similar medication. But although all the readings and all that about her life and that, they said she had schizophrenia and paranoia. Well, they're not two separate things. It'd just be paranoid schizophrenia. But my mum reckons she didn't even have that, and it was just a similar medication they had to stop her from being violent, and the violence was only because she'd get frustrated because she wasn't the brightest spark. Now, I knew she wasn't born that way, and it turns out I was right. I heard she had a fever, or she caught something and found out what it was. It was actually a burst appendix, caused an extremely high fever, which gave her brain damage. Now, there's not a great deal of cases like this, but it is known to happen where people get a fever that's so high that it'll actually give them brain damage from this high fever. And this all happened when she's 3 years old, when she got the burst appendix and all that. So it's, yeah, I mean, shit, what a way to freaking get brain damage. Like, burst appendix could happen to anyone, and then a high fever, and then that causes brain damage. I mean, what a way to end up as someone who, has an intellectual disability. Like, of all the fucking things to happen, bloody burst appendix was the start of it. Anyway. Long and short of it there, fourth time round that I got to end up reading out a great big thing. Because, see, when you've got a family full of aunties and female cousins, everyone else is on the blub and can't seem to keep shit on the road because their emotions are overpowering them. And long and short of it, being I'm not sure if it's just me or it's a bit of the troll. And I think it is really me and the way I've trained myself to sort of, when I was in my teens, I got torn to bits by emotions and worries and stupidity. And there came a time where I just said, what, fuck this. This is actually damaging myself, getting worried about stupid shit, getting, embarrassed about stupid shit. And you just get to that point where you've just had enough of your emotions. And I learned to just fucking ignore them. And, you shouldn't block out your emotions, you're bottling up. No, it's not bottling up your emotions. It's almost like the I don't give a fuck sort of mentality, I'm just not listening to them because I know they're full of shit and they're not something that is justifiable. And emotions, just like love, many times are blown out of proportion and they're not really justifiable to how they go. So you just accept that and you just ignore them, It's not bottling anything up. It's just taking it into context as to what it really is. And most emotions and even love can be just wildly out of proportion to reality. So you take that on as a fact and then you say, well, I'm not going to frickin' respond to all this shit. I mean, a lot of people it's like what they say about all these SJWs, I have the right for you not to offend me. Well, fuck, you get offended by everything. And this is the thing. It's got to... You are in control of... And as much as the SJWs don't want to know this, you are in control of what you're offended by and how you feel about stuff. And it's not everybody else's fault if you get upset. And when you sort of take it like that, you can just sort of compartmentalise your stuff but it's not even compartmentalise it. It's just sort of look at it for what it is, which is just heartstrings and things that'll, if you feed emotions, they'll spiral out of fucking control, and it's well known. But having said that, this meant that I was time number 4 when I got up and was the one doing the main big waffle on a person's life at a funeral. And this is literally like the 4th time I've had a big speech at a funeral. And you get up and it's a little bit nervous, but then again, it's mainly family and just, I don't know, maybe another 15, 20 people you don't know or whatever. And after a couple of, I don't feel nervous, I just get short of breath for like the first few lines and whatnot, so I sort of, and then, you you take an extra breath at the end of some of these sentences, and before you know it, you're just rattling off this whole page. And let me tell you, it was an entire A4 page with quite small font, and there was a frickin' fair heap to read on that thing. But anyway, we rattled through the entire lot, and that was that. And then one of my aunties got up, and sure as eggs, she did get on the blub. So, but a lot of, the time we haven't been exposed to her. Us as cousins haven't been exposed to her that much because of her violence. And, there was a time there where I was about 5 years old, and, there's a bit of leftover food, and she decided she was going to get it. And I got a fairly good shoving and stuff for her to get it. And it was about that time where they decided that, she shouldn't be seeing the rest of the cousins in case she got heavy-handed with them as she did with me. But that's yeah. As a result, many of us never really knew her that well, at least not, the younger cousins and me and whatnot. But one particular older cousin, the 43-year-old, she sort of had a fair bit more to do with her. So, yeah. But anyway, that's one person gone. And I mean, when you look at how, you think of it she's, bloody more or less 230 pounds and friggin' smoke like there's no tomorrow, and never had any decent food and all this sort of shit. And when you look at how old and worn out she looked, fuck me, and all the medication for decades of this medication. You looked at her, and to look at facially, she just looked like she's all hollowing out, if you know what I mean, sort of hollowing out, like all her eyes are becoming deep set, and looked like some sort of effect that you'd see with some sort of drug addict or something, It just really sort of aged her like an old witch almost, just unbelievable. Like she could have been 105 or something. Like really, it looked that bad. She's 105 kilos, and she could have been 105 years old as well, And you just think, fuck. It's a wonder she even made it to 68. It really is. Because if you had other people on that shit food and all that shit diet, they'd be fucked by, probably 55 or something, But anyway, she got to 68, and there's a sister who is older than her who's 70, and she's also got a few mental issues, but she hasn't sort of been smoking or anything like that, and she has been on a lot of medication over the years. She's a bit of a dithering woman, but sometimes she tells it as it is too, and yeah. So I suspect that within the next 10 years we'll be burying her too. But yeah, she likes the cake a bit, and she's got a little bit of weight, but she's not she still does try and eat fairly reasonably healthy, whereas this auntie who's just gone, oh man. People used to tell her to eat healthy, and she'd go, yeah, I know I shouldn't. Then she'd just sort of laugh. She usually just laugh and say, yeah, I know I should, and just sort of brush it aside. And I don't think she really understood the gravity of coffee and cigarettes and meat pies and milkshakes aren't the best sort of stuff you want to live on. But yeah, gonna have to go clean this place out as well. So, oh man, I don't know how many old places I've cleaned out. There's one that I thought I'd be involved in cleaning out, and I didn't. And apparently it's still fully furnished, so I find out more recently. And my sister may be renting that place that a great uncle used to have off of my dad's cousin, who's got all the fucking 6-7 houses, whatever it is. Got quite a few, but sister and brother-in-law are going to be renting that one. And oh, guess what? fully furnished. Yep. That only took them... Well, when I was doing the plastering, if any of you remember that, that was when that guy died. And, like, only now is the house sort of, cleaned out. It's probably been cleaned out for a little while now, probably the last year or so. But all the same furniture's still there and everything like that. So, it took him like 4 years to even clean the damn joint out. But, it was one of those things that I wasn't involved in. No one was really involved in that one except just that one cousin who ended up inheriting it. So, or my dad's cousin, as it is, who ended up inheriting it. So yeah, but apparently this auntie used to be big on the dresses, and my mum and another aunt went there and they said, holy shit, there's some clothes. I mean, there's just, there's several bedrooms, and these other bedrooms she doesn't sleep in, there's just wardrobes and more clothes and wardrobes and more clothes and frickin' clothes beyond the joke. Every week she'd be buying more clothes. In fact, they said one week she bought 28 dresses in 1 week. So, needless to say, there's a photo I seen of one that she was buried in that was an absolute ripper, and there's a bloody lot of good clothes there, and there's also a lot of stuff that's pillowcases that ain't even opened and all this stuff, and a lot of packets of cigarettes as well, not surprisingly, and a heap of stuff in a garage, some of which is two other people's stuff. So we're going to have to sort this out, and actually my father saw it and he said there's frickin' trailers full of shit there, and I'm like, oh, turns out, she never drove, but she had a friggin' garage, didn't she? It's full of shit, isn't it? Of course it is. So we've got to try and pass this stuff off to these other people who have got it. They didn't know who they were, but they've worked out at least one of the people who it is, a particular other woman from a church or something, or who used to go to a church or something. Find out who the other one is, then we'll be able to get all their shit out, and we'll sort of go from there. But I don't know how long we've got to get all this crapola out, but if it's really worthwhile, I need to get insurance on this van, and I haven't even got the damn thing yet, but yeah, we'll see how we go. I might even end up taking up my normal car, because that's a wagon and you can fit a substantial amount of stuff in that if you really pack it in. So I might be going up with that. See how we go anyway. We'll see how we go.